by being everything to everybody, you're not attractive to anybody, right? You end up just kind of blending into the crowd. And so revenue management starts first by setting these properties up correctly. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Sean Moore. We're here with another segment of Whisky Wednesdays with my main man, Mr. Dave Savulich. Got tied up in the mic there, Dave. So these are those short, sweet, to-the-point episodes where we're going to talk about a little bit of what's going on in our world. We're going to talk about some short-term rental trending topics, and then we always answer questions that you guys send in. So if you're listening or watching, whatever platform you're on, DM us, send us a message, and we'll get those questions answered for you on an upcoming episode of Whisky Wednesday. So Dave, let's dive in. You always have our topics, but before we start, told you I was going to do this, but I need to clear the air because we just got back from Nashville. I was speaking at a short-term rental conference. And it's really important to me always to let people walk into this game with their eyes wide open and lead with really good factual information. And I screwed up on stage on Monday, and it's been bugging me ever since. And I was talking about the income on a property, and the other guy I was there with, and we were talking, and he said, was that gross or net? And I said net instead of gross. Well, there's a huge difference between profits, because net profit is what we're putting in our pocket at the end of the day. Gross numbers are what a lot of people talk about. So it seems like these properties make more money. And I made a mistake of saying, he said, was that net? Or he didn't say gross or net. He said, was that net? And I said, yes. Ever since then, it's bugged me because I said this property made $80,000 in net. It actually made 80 gross, which means those of you listening that I was only putting, usually my expense ratio is about 50 to 55% on a property. So normally 80 gross would be maybe $35,000, $40,000 in net profit in my pocket. This property, I don't have any debt service on. I own it free and clear. My expense ratio is closer to 30, 35%. And so I'm making about 50 grand on that property, but not 80. And so I just need to, need to clear the air. I know Dave's like, don't do that. I was like, it's bugging me.
And we've talked about it, but I think that's honorable. I think that's great. It did bug you. I know you caught it from the start, and we talked about it later that evening. There were a lot of people in the room, and probably a handful may have questioned it or said, that seems a little odd. But that's one of the things that I think most people appreciate about you, but also appreciate about Vodacy, is that we try to tell everybody the full picture of everything that's going on. We don't inflate information. We tell you the transparency about what we're doing and why we're doing it and so forth. So, but you are right. The gross and the net is a big deal. So
it's a big difference. And it is, that was a major error.
Right.
And so, and so we wanted to, if you were in the room, I apologize. Those of you that were there live. And
I think most people were just all awe-inspired about you being up there in your hat and
the hat was,
and the boots. And
all right.
Man, they were like,
it was the full Nashville experience, right?
That the Sean Moore? And he wasn't even dressing for the part. I mean, this is the cowboy was right there.
It was. I'll tell you what, Nashville was fun, man. We had a blast. Although those of you, hopefully some of you that are listening were there. We saw a lot of people on the streets that said they listened to the podcast. It was so fun meeting you. Thanks so much for those of you that did come up and say hi to us and shake our hands and tell us, your story of getting into this game, and then all those other people that we met. I mean, heck, Broadway is a fun spot to be, right? All those great bands,
especially if you love country music like you and I do. I mean, we spent a couple hours one night and pretty much had the band to ourselves. And we gave him requests, and he sang all of our songs. And that was awesome. So
it was really fun. Those of you that are listening that were there, we had a blast meeting a lot of new people there, introducing, a lot of you introduced yourselves while you were there, saying you're longtime listeners and fans. And so we appreciate it. It was really, really a fun time for us in Nashville. We definitely want to go back, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, and I think the other great thing about Nashville for us was, not only was it great to have you speak at the conference, and there was about 200 people in the room, and I think they got a lot of good information, but we also had our Vodacy meetup.
Yes.
And we had about 45 of our members actually attend. We had a great venue. It was a kind of a social networking event. It was awesome. So all of you that came, thank you for coming. It was great to meet you in person and to spend some time with you. Hopefully you got a chance to spend some time with Sean and myself, but also meet other Vodacy members that are in your area, but doing the same thing that you're doing. So we're going to continue to do those meetups. And if you ever have a chance to come, it's just a great way to network with Vodacy and the same people that are doing the same thing you guys are doing. So
let's dive in today. What do we got on the agenda?
We got a little bit. I got a good fun question for you first, but people, inquiring minds want to know, what is a perfect day in Sean Moore's life? It's a perfect day.
Wow.
My
perfect day. Geez, that's a hard one.
It is a tough one.
Yeah. My perfect day, I would say, would be like one. I don't know. I love what I do every day. That's hard. That's really hard for me.
Let's do this.
My days
we probably have 10 or 12 different perfect days you could conjure
Right.
up?
A perfect work day, a perfect family day, a perfect
outdoors day.
Yeah.
Let's say, all right, let's change it up, make it a little easier. Give me your perfect outdoors activity day, adventure day.
Yeah. Easy for me.
Okay.
Waking up early, grabbing Teresa and White Grace, hitting the river, drift boat, on the river. Phone doesn't work all day. Just casting a fly rod, rowing the river. I have a couple favorite rivers that I like to float, and then just getting up. I mean, I could do that all day.
Yeah.
And it's fun. That's if I have a choice of a free day, that's what I'm going to go do. So that would be probably my perfect day. Because if you say here's a free day, you do what you want to do, I would be on a river floating.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I figured that would be one of your perfect days because I know how much you like to do that. There's something magical about floating a river and spending a little time with family, but also, weather and, my perfect day would be, I don't know exactly, because I agree with you. It's a hard day. It's hard to decide what that perfect day would be. Mine would be sleeping in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah,
Yours is getting up early.
I'd get up early.
I'd sleep in a little bit, maybe 8 o'clock. I'd for sure get a workout in. Part of being into my perfect day would be summer. I mean, I like the warm weather.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh yeah.
I want shorts and a t-shirt and, doing something like that with a family or friends or something outdoors for sure. That would be my perfect day.
So we're a little different on the front end because my perfect day has nothing to do with working out.
Your perfect day
I work out every day, but that's not my perfect day. I just do it because it's a means to an end, right?
Your perfect day starts about 2 hours before my perfect day.
Yeah. It's I just my body just gets up earlier. I literally haven't set an alarm in probably 15 years.
Right.
And that's just we're I'm always like, can I text Dave yet or not? When I wake up.
You know what I hate about getting up, like when you have to go to work and you're got to get up early to work out. I don't like to be rushed when I work out. I want to go down and I want to work out until I'm done, until I'm tired and I can't lift any more weights. You know what I mean?
I'm glad to meet somebody who likes working out.
I mean, till I'm so pumped that I can't lift
after I'm done
anything.
working out. I don't like working out ever. It's never been my top things to do. Like there's some days where I'm like, oh yes, it snowed today and I got to go shovel snow and I don't have to work out.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to skip the workout. I'm excited for the snow. No.
Oh, good. Well, good. All right. Well, let's jump in.
There is one thing that can make or break your success with short-term rentals, and that's your ability to provide your guests with an amazing night's rest. We're taking all of the guesswork out of selecting the perfect mattress system. Personally, I have these custom mattresses in every one of my short-term rentals. We love them so much that we even got them in our own personal homes here in Utah. So visit VodySleepSystem.com and use the promo code podcast. It's all caps at checkout to get 55% off.
Trending topics. As we embark on a new year, 2024, short-term rentals is obviously on our mind every day as a full priority and trying to help people and grow Vodyssey and really dive into that side of the business. As I looked online and I really researched some stuff this last week, it's interesting, but the major short-term challenges that come up for 2024, there's 3 of them. And
for short-term rentals.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, for short-term rentals. Yeah. What did I say?
Short-term challenges.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there are 3 things. The first is market dynamics. And in other words, where to buy. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is regulatory landscape or the zoning. And the third one is innovative approaches to revenue growth, or how do you maximize your listing? So those were the 3 things that came up. I'll turn it back to you, but I don't think they're any different than 2023.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, we're asking about market dynamics, where to buy, what are the best locations. We're talking about rules and regulations, which is where can I actually operate a short-term rental? And we're asking about the next one was, maximizing your revenue management. Those are pretty fundamental, right?
Right.
I mean, it's interesting at this stage in the game. This is a very mature market. Short-term rental investing is very mature. We've seen it go from where we started at 2006, where it was just an idea, to where it is today. It's really the time of the professional host. It's a mature market. The top of the market is making the majority of the money. The majority of the money is made when you dial in the fundamentals that you're talking about, right? Yeah. We always talk about the 3 major things you have to dial in. You have to find the right market and the right property, right? And that includes the rules and the regulations. That includes the investability of it. How much is the acquisition price versus the revenue? All of those different things to identify the investability of a market. That's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. Anytime you're writing big checks for properties, that's going to be dialed in and has to be there. The next piece is going to be, I have to, and this goes into revenue management, is I have to identify that target audience, right? And then I have to create a unique experience for the target audience. And that's easier said than done for a lot of people, because normally we buy these properties, and we see this all the time, and we buy these properties and we're like, hey, anybody can come, because I'm trying to fill occupancy. I'm trying to get as many people through this property as I can. And a lot of people stumble over that, because by being everything to everybody, you're not attractive to anybody. Right? You end up just kind of blending into the crowd. And so revenue management starts first by setting these properties up correctly and being able to dial in a target audience and dial in a unique experience and set that property up to deliver that through all of the, the design, all of the amenities, ultimately the management that you put in place, whether it's you or somebody else. All of that is big decisions that you need to make to create this unique customer experience. Right. And then it has to be delivered the same way every time. That's where maximizing your revenue starts. And then we have to be able to understand how to articulate it and market it, right? And sometimes you feel like you have to have a marketing degree when you listen to some people talk. We were just at the short-term rental wealth conference, and there was a lot of really smart people there. There was a lot of things going on, but there was a lot of people selling the easy button and saying, well, you got to have this tool to figure out this algorithm. You have to have this tool to plug in here for your revenue management and your pricing. And then you have to have this tool to help you market your properties. And I looked at it, and at the end of the day, nothing's an easy button. You have to really dial in the fundamentals if you really want to maximize your revenue. And these things that you're talking about that are the most, the trending topics and the thing people want to talk about for short-term rentals in 2024, those are the fundamentals. Right. Have to have a good property. We have to have a great, unique experience. We have to be able to deliver that unique experience, and we have to be able to articulate it in our marketing. At the end of the day, when you do that, you maximize properties. Right. And so, and it's not one magic pill. It's not one thing that you can do. It's saying, I got to dial all of that in, and the recipe is there for success though. This is now, there's like, even in our group, right? We've got almost 3,000 people in our group. We've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people making over 6 figures a year. We've got a handful of people making over 7 figures a year doing this. And so the recipe's there. You can dial it back and follow the recipe, but the recipe is dialing in the fundamentals. Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think, people ask me, and actually a couple of them at the conference this week asked me about, what's the biggest challenge? And one of the challenges, it's one of the biggest, but just like you said, people, they get into this market and they think that there's an easy button or something that's just like, hey, I can just get in, this is going to be easy. It's really not. But I would tell people, you have to have a process. Don't go into it unless you understand some of these major aspects of the business, like maximizing and finding the right property and just understanding the zoning. I mean, it's funny. I see these things online and it's like, it's not rocket science. It's just really back to the basics and back to the fundamentals. Like, these are the things that we've been doing for years. This is nothing new in 2024. Right. This is just stuff that, hey, if you want to play in this game, you've really got to dive in. And I think a great part is that you just said is don't get so caught up in, there's 100 software programs out there and they all want you to sign up for them. And all you're doing is getting more confused. Right. And so, follow a process, have a blueprint. And understanding the fundamentals is different than understanding how to execute on them. Right. Yeah. Like I might talk about, being able to articulate with great photos or setting up a unique experience, but you have to also know how to execute on that. And there's a lot of people who talk about doing a lot of stuff and there's very little execution. Right. And so, people always say, what's the, what secret do you have? What are you doing to have the top properties in these markets after you launch, after, 1 year in, you've got the #1 property in a market. It's stacking all of these things, but we understand not only the fundamentals, we understand how to execute on those fundamentals, right? Yep. We understand, we can talk about rules and regulations all the time. I have a very specific process that we follow to make sure that we can operate in a short-term rental friendly area. Right. Yeah, and that it's going to likely stay short-term rental friendly. All those different things that we look at, and it's just taking one piece at a time and dialing that in, but you have to execute on it. You can't say, well, I did a little bit better photos than somebody else. Well, if everybody's got 6s and you put an 8 out there, you're a little bit better and you're going to deviate toward the mean, right? If there's not something, you got to go from a 6 to a 10. That's when you stand out like a sore thumb. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's really interesting. And I think people do try to, I think that they don't give themselves enough credit that it is as simple as we talk about it. Exactly. And you can make it simple. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated, but you do have to take action and execute. Yeah. Yeah. You got to put some effort into it for sure. All right. So we got a question here. Do you think manufactured homes are a good short-term rental option? Again, this is Maybe, maybe not, right?
Yeah.
It depends on the market you're in. There are some markets that manufactured homes work great. I just looked at one yesterday in it was a market on the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky, and it had this treehouse component. There was all these tree houses connected to it. It was a manufactured home, but it was a very unique experience that fit really well with the vibe that was going on in that area, kind of a little bit of a rural area. And it worked well, and it was nice, and it was a nice manufactured home. I mean, everything was very congruent. The build job, the experience that you could create, that could work really well. I've seen other manufactured homes that are plopped in the middle of stick-built homes that don't fit well. Right. It seems like they're out of place. It seems like it's a budget type of a property, and so it all depends on the market, right? And you really have to dial it back and look at it and say, what am I trying to create? Who's the target audience? What are they coming here for? What are the other options they have available? And is it going to be congruent, at least somewhat congruent with what's going on and why they're coming and what they're looking for, right? Yeah. And so all manufactured homes aren't created equal either, right? And so some of them you would have a hard time telling the difference between them or stick-built homes. Other ones you're like, man, that looks like a trailer home.
Exactly.
And it might not be the right fit. And so there's not a yeah, they work or no, they don't work. It's very dependent on, again, the area, the target audience, the experience, the revenue potential. You know, you got to look at all of that. In some areas, they can actually operate toward the top end of the revenue. Right. Other areas, you're gonna be like, no, this is going to be a budget property. The other thing you have to consider with manufactured homes is the lending ability. Sometimes they're not very lendable, depending on. Typically, if they're not on a foundation, the lenders aren't going to lend on them. But even if they're on a foundation, there might be restrictions with your lender. So you always want to ask your lender as well, is if you're going to run down condos are the same way, manufactured homes. Do they lend on those types of products if for the loan product you're really using? Because you don't want to make an offer, look at like all the things that we talked about. You feel like it works, everything's going to work there. And then you call your lender and say, I made an offer. And they're like, we don't lend on manufactured homes. So that is something to consider as well.
Yeah, looking in. And like you said, I think the key word is depends. It just depends. I think I told this story a couple months ago, but this last summer, my daughter went to a lake property with some friends, families. And she had said, I think they rented a trailer house. And so your first impression was like, okay, well, all right, whatever. But she sent pictures. She said it was awesome. There was tons of room and they created an amazing experience. And so it worked awesome for them. Yeah. So maybe the barrier to entry was a little less because maybe it wasn't expensive for the property owner, but it was a great experience and a great option. So I think when you say dependent, you have to go down the same path you would of any other short-term rental. Zoning, can you get the financing? What are the other occupancy levels and rates and percentages in the area? I mean, do that work before you buy it, especially.
And you'll find a lot of rural areas. You'll find some areas that you're looking at, especially the really rural areas, you'll find more manufactured homes than stick-built because there's not the labor pool to build homes in some of those areas, right? Yeah. They're not the stick-built homes, the labor pool's not there. The contractors aren't there. And so it's much easier, and you'll find that some of those areas, you'll find that that's just more of a normal thing. Yeah. So you look at all that.
Yeah. Good. All right. Let's wrap up. We got, we only had one question today, but we also, I wanted to mention that we do have a new YouTube series. Okay. That you did one episode, and I think it's aired. It's about Airbnb mishaps and reactions. Yeah. And I think you did an awesome job at it. But it's
some of them I'm a little speechless, which is hard to believe. I just look at those and so
I think it'll be fun. I think it's crazy or interesting, I guess, some of the things that happen out in the Airbnb world. And I think we have to emphasize being professional and making sure you're setting the stage for an amazing experience. And so we're going to highlight some challenges and some mishaps and maybe some defaults and that some owners and property managers have. And so I think it'll be a fun little series. So
it'll be
watch
fun.
out for that, everybody.
We're going to, if you're a bad host and you got a bad property, I might be calling you out. So we're trying to raise the bar in the entire industry. And there are some, those first ones I did, I'm like, they should not be hosting in this game. No, they shouldn't be doing that. It gives everybody a bad name. And so if you're a bad actor, I'm going to call you out and tell you to get out of the game. And so it's specifically on the host side.
Yeah.
So awesome. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Well, let's wrap it up, you guys. That was we got maybe a little longer, even though we didn't have as many questions.
Well, I will have to say, and we're going to extend this even a little longer, is when I was in Nashville, I got a lot of compliments about Whisky Wednesday and that they listened to it.
Oh, that's why you're long-winded.
Hey, listen,
I was there to witness it.
I felt like I needed to put a little extra effort in this one today because a lot of people said they drive into work and they listen to us and they like it, and you know what I mean. And this microphone, for those of you who aren't watching us, but you kind of feel like you want to start singing like you're in a band because we've just been there in Nashville. So you know what I mean?
Well, there we go, guys. We are not going to waste any more of your time. We always appreciate you spending your time with us. And I knew you were long-winded for a reason. You had a couple people on the streets tell you they loved your Whisky Wednesday.
A little bit more of us.
Yeah. So guys, we'll wrap it up. You guys know at the end of every episode, first of all, we love your questions. Send them in. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, I said, listen, if whatever platform you're watching or listening on, send us a message, comment, and tell us the questions that you have on your mind so that we can get them answered when it comes to the short-term rental game. And then those final two favors I always ask you is if you got any value out of this and you know somebody else that would get value out of it, share the show. Those things really do help us spread the word and spread the message. Our goal is always to have people walk into this game with their eyes wide open. We try not to make mistakes, but I promise if we do, we'll correct them like we did today. And we want you to walk into the short-term rental investing game with your eyes wide open. And then also, if you have more than 30 seconds, like, review, leave us a comment on these platforms. That does help us immensely, and so we very much appreciate that. The final thing and the most important thing is to go pick that one thing you can do today, start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends. Cheers, brother.
Cheers, buddy.